After the flames were finally extinguished, Los Angeles was left in a state of ruins, smoke, and silence that spoke of loss. Neighborhoods, once full of life, were now covered in ash and the remains of burned-out buildings. Families returned to see what was left of their homes, and for many, it seemed as if there was no hope. Keanu Reeves, who had already helped during the evacuation, could not stand by and see the aftermath. He realized that the main task now was not only to help people survive this tragedy, but also to help them rebuild their lives. Keanu decided to take the next step, to organize systematic assistance to rebuild the devastated areas. Keanu started by visiting the affected areas. He personally met with families who had lost everything and listened to their stories. Among them was the Jenkins family, parents and 2 children who were now living in a temporary shelter. Their home, a small pastry shop that was their source of income, had burned to the ground. For this family, the loss was not only material, but also emotional. It was their life, a dream they had been building for years. Keanu, moved by the Jenkins story, decided to help them. But he also realized that their case was just one of thousands of similar tragedies, and he had to do something more. Using his resources and connections, Keanu created the Rebuild LA Foundation, a charitable foundation that aimed to help affected families rebuild their homes and communities. The foundation worked in several areas. 1. Providing materials and labor for the construction of new sustainable homes. 2. Business support, providing grants to small businesses affected by the fire. 3. Psychological support, establishment of support centers where people can get help from specialists. 4. Education and training, organizing programs for children and adults to prepare them for life after the tragedy. The first projects of the foundation were launched in a few weeks. Volunteers, local residents, and companies joined Keanu's efforts. It all started with a small group of people helping to clean up the ruins, but gradually the initiative grew into a large-scale movement. People planted trees, painted the walls of restored houses, and created new public spaces. The Jenkins family became one of the first examples of success. Their house was rebuilt, and their pastry shop got a new location. On the opening day, they treated everyone to their signature cakes, and it became a symbol of hope and new beginnings for the community. The culmination of the foundation's work was a big event in the restored neighborhood. A park was created on the site of the burned-out square, where hundreds of new trees were planted. This park has become a symbol of rebirth. Keanu spoke at the event and said, "This is not just about rebuilding homes. It's about restoring our faith in each other. Together, we can overcome any difficulty and create a better future." People applauded, hugged, and many had tears of joy in their eyes. The community that had gone through the tragedy now felt stronger than ever. The Rebuild LA Foundation, founded by Keanu Reeves, quickly attracted the attention of not only Los Angeles residents, but also people across the country. Thanks to his reputation and sincere dedication to the cause, many celebrities, businessmen, and philanthropists have joined the initiative. What started as a small movement has grown into a large-scale restoration campaign. Keanu invited his friends from the movie industry to participate in the foundation. Famous personalities such as Sandra Bullock, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Emma Watson responded. They not only donated money, but also joined volunteer events. Together, they organized a charity concert, the proceeds of which were used to build new housing for the victims. Keanu delivered a speech at the concert. "This tragedy has shown us how much we can do when we come together. Each of you today is part of the recovery, part of a new beginning for those who have lost everything." The foundation's first major project was the construction of an eco-friendly residential complex for 50 families who had lost their homes. These houses used energy-efficient technologies and materials that are resistant to natural disasters. In addition, a community center was built next to the complex where people could gather, receive counseling, and participate in joint activities. During the opening of the complex, Linda Harris, a single mother who lost her home in a fire, shared her emotions. "This is not just a roof over our heads. This is a place where my children can feel at home again. Thank you to everyone who made this possible. Keanu met with the mayor of Los Angeles to discuss ways to improve the city's preparedness for future disasters. Several initiatives were developed as a result of this meeting. 1. Education programs for citizens on how to act during fires and evacuations. 2. Expansion of fire services, purchase of new equipment, training of additional personnel. 3. Restoring nature, planting new forests and creating safety zones around residential areas. During the course of his work, Keanu met many people whose stories left a deep mark on his heart. One of them was the story of an old couple, Greg and Mary. Their house burned down completely, but they saved an album of family photos that became a symbol of hope for them. Thanks to the foundation, the couple received new housing and help in restoring a small garden they had been tending for many years. This is our second chance. We never thought anyone would help us the way Keanu did. It's a real miracle for us, said Greg. Realizing that recovery work is a long-term process, Keanu decided to expand the scope of the foundation. He initiated partnerships with companies in the construction and green energy sectors. His goal was not only to rebuild Los Angeles, but also to create a model that other cities could use to deal with natural disasters. Keanu also started working on a documentary to show the world how people can come together in difficult times. He wanted this story to serve as an example for others and inspire good deeds. The work of Keanu and his foundation changed not only the physical landscape of the affected areas, but also the lives of thousands of people. He often said, "This is not about me, it's about all of us. Together we can build more than just houses. We can build a future that will be a symbol of strength, kindness, and hope." As the work to rebuild Los Angeles continued, it was clear that the tragedy that had destroyed so much had become the basis for a new chapter in the city's history, a chapter written with humanity and compassion. The fires in Los Angeles were finally contained, but the aftermath remained horrific. Destroyed homes, evacuation centers crowded with people, and ash covering the streets were all reminders of the scale of the tragedy. Residents began to return to their homes, but for many of them, it was only the foundation left of their former lives. Keanu Reeves, who had been actively helping with the evacuation all along, knew that the most important thing now was to support people in the first days after the disaster. He continued to act, organizing the delivery of humanitarian aid to the most affected areas. Keanu and his team decided to set up several temporary support centers in the most vulnerable areas. At the bases, volunteers distributed food, water, clothing, and medicine. They also organized mobile medical aid stations for people who were injured or poisoned by smoke during the fire. One such base was set up in an area where many families with children lived. Keanu personally came to supervise the work of the volunteers. He helped unload trucks with supplies, distributed water bottles to children, and even stayed for several hours to talk to the locals. The fire caused a strong emotional impact on the children who lost their homes and felt fear and uncertainty about the future. Keanu understood this and decided to create a safe space for them. He organized improvised playgrounds at the bases where children could escape from reality for a while. One day, he met a little girl named Sophia who had lost her favorite toy in the fire. She was sitting on the sidelines holding a burnt teddy bear. Keanu came up to her, sat down next to her, and said quietly, "You know, this teddy bear has been through a lot, but it's still here. And so are you. He is your hero." Sophia smiled for the first time that day. The next time Keanu came back to the base, he brought her a new teddy bear, similar to the one she had lost. This gesture became a symbol of the care that everyone needed right then. Every day brought new stories of loss and struggle. One of them was about an elderly couple, Mark and Elizabeth. Their house burned down completely, and they were left without any means of subsistence. The only thing they were able to save was a photo album that contained memories of their lives. Keanu personally met with them, listened to their story, and promised to help them find temporary housing. He He also organized a set of basic necessities for them and helped them access social support programs. Realizing that the scale of the tragedy was too great for one team, Keanu reached out to other charitable organizations. Together, they created a coordination center to distribute resources to the affected areas. This allowed for more efficient delivery of aid to where it was most needed. The foundation's partners included international organizations that provided financial assistance and local businesses that donated food, medicine, and construction materials. This cooperation was an important step towards providing all the victims with minimum living conditions. Despite the gravity of the situation, there were many moments in these first days after the fires that reminded people of the power of unity. Volunteers worked side by side with local residents to help clear the ruins and support each other. At one of the volunteer events, Keanu said, "We can't bring back what was lost, but we can create something new, together, and it will be even better than it was." His words inspired many people and became a rallying cry for those who fought to rebuild. While the first days after the disaster were devoted to meeting basic needs, Keanu and his team began to think about how to help people in the long term. It was decided to focus on creating programs that would not only restore material things, but also help people regain faith in themselves and their future. This part of their work was just beginning, and there were many challenges ahead. But for Keanu, it was not only a matter of duty, but also of honor to support those who had survived the darkest times and help them see the light. A week after the fires were contained, Los Angeles was still in a state of shock. People were returning to their neighborhoods to face the reality of burned-out buildings, empty streets, and the thick smell of smoke in the air. Nevertheless, hope began to emerge in many hearts thanks to the joint efforts of volunteers, organizations, and people who were willing to help. And among those people is Keanu Reeves. Keanu organized a meeting at a temporary community center set up at a local school. Affected residents, volunteers, and representatives of the foundation gathered there to discuss immediate needs and the first steps toward recovery. The meeting began with Keanu's words. "We all went through something terrible, but right now it's important to remember that we are not alone. We are together, and together we can not only overcome the consequences, but also build something greater than we had before." At this meeting, it was decided to 1. Organize joint cleanups to clean up the streets and the remains of buildings. 2. Start collecting applications for assistance for the most affected families. 3. Establish temporary support groups for people who have lost loved ones or been seriously injured. The first joint action was to clean up the district's Central Park, which had almost completely burned down. Volunteers, including local residents and Keanu's team, worked from morning to evening. They cleaned up the burned trees, planted new saplings, and installed benches. Everyone worked side by side, regardless of age or status. Little Sophia, whom Keanu met a few days ago, brought her new teddy bear to sit next to one of the new trees. She said, "This tree will grow big and protect others like my teddy bear protects me." This moment became a symbol of hope for everyone present. Among the volunteers was Sarah, a small coffee shop owner who lost her business to the fire. She joined the team to provide everyone with hot drinks and homemade pastries. Sarah said that her goal was not only to support others, but also to find inspiration to start over. Another example was the Johnson family, who lost their home but decided to help other families by organizing a collection of clothes and toys for children. Their garage turned into a mini warehouse for humanitarian aid. Keanu realized that these first efforts were only the beginning. The next step was to engage civil engineering and architecture professionals to develop a plan to rebuild the residential areas. He initiated a meeting with the city's leading architects to discuss the possibility of creating resilient buildings that would be better protected from natural disasters. "We can't just rebuild what was there. We have to create something better, something that will stand the test of time and protect people in the future," Keanu said during the discussion. Keanu's efforts have inspired many people across the country. His foundation began receiving donations from people who wanted to be part of the movement. Partnerships were established with large companies that provided building materials, transportation, and equipment. Despite his fatigue, Keanu continued to be at the center of all the events. He often repeated, "This is not my merit. This is the merit of each of you. Together we are creating a new life for Los Angeles." At the end of the first week after the disaster, Keanu organized a memorial event for all the victims. During the event, a local band performed a song that became an anthem of recovery. Everyone present lit candles in honor of those who did not survive the tragedy and those who continue to fight for a better future. In that moment, it became clear that even after the darkest of times, human kindness and unity can be the light that leads the way. After the first weeks of dealing with the aftermath of the fire, Los Angeles began to come alive. Survivors were finding the strength to get back to life, and the community, which had come together thanks to the efforts of Keanu Reeves and his foundation, became a symbol of unity and recovery. The Rebuild LA Foundation has completed the distribution of humanitarian aid and moved on to creating long-term recovery plans. It announced the launch of a grant program for small businesses affected by the fires. At the same time, work began to rebuild key infrastructure facilities such as schools, community centers, and hospitals. Keanu personally visited one of the first schools to reopen after the repairs. The children prepared drawings for him, depicting new homes, trees, and people helping each other. It was a moment of realization for him how important this work was. To celebrate the achievements and honor the efforts of all those involved in the relief effort, a large event was organized in the restored Central Park. The park was full of life that day, with children laughing, local musicians performing, volunteers handing out refreshments, and warm hugs from people who had been brought closer together by the tragedy. Keanu delivered a speech that left a deep mark on the hearts of those present. This tragedy has tested us, but it has also shown us how strong we are when we act together. Each of you is a hero of this story. Together we have built not only homes, but also a community that will never break. I thank each of you for your strength, kindness, and love. The event also included an auction featuring unique items created by local artists, with all proceeds going to further support the affected families. A few months after the disaster, the city began to look different. The areas that were destroyed have now become examples of modern and environmentally sustainable construction. New homes, green parks, energy-efficient buildings. All of these have become part of the renewed Los Angeles. The Keanu Foundation continued to work to help other communities facing similar challenges. His work has inspired thousands of people around the world to create their own initiatives to support those in need. Keanu often gave back to the communities he helped rebuild. He stayed in touch with many families, including the Johnsons, who reopened their small restaurant, and Sophia, who now called her teddy bear a symbol of hope. For him, this story was not only about helping others, but also about inner enrichment, understanding how important it is to be part of something bigger. This tragedy changed not only the city, but also everyone who survived it. It served as a reminder of how much people can accomplish when they work together. Los Angeles not only recovered, but became stronger, proving that even from the ashes, new life can be created. At the end of his speech at the celebration, Keanu said, "We have been through a lot, but with every challenge, we become stronger. This is not the end of the story. This is a new beginning." People gave a standing ovation, hugged each other, and promised each other to keep this spirit of unity forever.